Dubai-headquartered Landmark Group is the largest non-food retailer in the Middle East and India, with 2,000 stores across 23 countries and more than 40 brands. Well, today we have the group CIO of the company joining us here at the London project in the beautiful Blue Waters Island, Mohamed Fanichi. Thanks so much for joining us, Mohamed.
Good to be with you.
Great. First things first, Landmark has always spoken about being a future-fit company. What I would like to know is how exactly are you leveraging data to get to where you want to be in 2021?
Landmark is the largest non-food retailer in the Middle East. And by the nature of it, the amount of data that we generate every day is tremendous. I mean, on a transaction level, just to give you some numbers, we generate something like 150 terabytes of transaction data every day.
Oh, wow.
So the idea here is with that amount of data, both of what customers buy, where they go, what they like, their feedback, all of this is data for us. And the idea is how do you maximize the use of this data to deliver value and intelligence to the business? Because ultimately what we try to do in all of this is understand the customer. In every shopping experience they have, and our objective is to deliver an experience that would allow them to come back and be loyal to us. And this is kind of where I think data is crucial in giving us that insight, understanding those behaviors, and ultimately tailor the experiences to what our customers need. And we have a variety of our customers, from babies or expectant mothers, or teenagers, all the way to when people kind of build a house, get married and buy and construct a home. So for us, we try to understand and scope what their requirement is and what they need.
Sure. So you mentioned it's such a diverse portfolio. So we've spoken to retailers in the past where, you know, with diverse portfolios like yourself, one problem that they've had is about cross-organization and cross-brand integration of the data that they've collected. So, you know, I know you're the group CIO, so you probably have access to all of the data, but how is it being shared within the brands, within the company?
I think it is a challenge because we have diverse, many concepts, our brands, and they are highly independent, each one with its own culture, its own organization, its own connectivity with the customers. And our job is, in effect, complex as it may be, is then to make sense of that data for each concept. Concepts like baby shop, where we have, for example, we have to understand the entire journey of a mother from before she gives birth all the way to the baby being a toddler. So how do you understand that data? How do you understand that information? But at the same time, we have kind of other profiles within our organizations, in Max, in Splash, in Shoemart and Shoe Express. And we have one of the largest kind of loyalty program. This is our Shokran program, where we see all of these behaviors, both online and offline in our stores. And there are things that kind of benefit the group that we can cross. And there is a lot of kind of analytics and insights that we use that benefits the group. But most of the time it's focusing about the concept, because this is our concept, our brand, because this is what makes Landmark of the great company it is. So where there is benefit in us sharing, then we do. And my job as a CIO is to ensure that the data is protected, the data is cured and curated in a way that kind of services our concepts. And this is kind of the beauty of being a group, because then concepts can benefit where it's possible from the group perspective, but mostly for us is the focus on the value of our concept. And even more important for us is understanding the customer journey with each of our concepts, each of our brands, each of our malls, and that then can be fed back to our leaders and our buying organization, our supply chains and our e-commerce teams, to allow them to make the right decisions and present the right proposition.
Absolutely. So it's one thing to collect the data and have access to data, and it's a completely different ballgame to use the data aptly, correct? So how exactly do you use the kind of data that you have access to when it comes to the buying decisions you make? For example, answering questions like, will it sell, what price points work, etc.
So I think the objective for us is to kind of present this data. So we have kind of from a system perspective, and we are, as a matter of fact, in the process of implementing one of the most ambitious kind of data solutions, in effect, because where in the past it was okay to wait for 2-3 days a week for data to make some decisions.
Yeah.
We live in a world where instantaneous access to intelligence is really key.
Exactly.
So we invest in kind of the real-time access to data. So broadly, it's all about kind of stored information, customer information, product information, competition information, and of course customer feedback.
Yeah.
And all of that we present in various at various levels, depending on what the role is. So a buyer will have access to a certain level of data, a planner would have to another, and supply chain would have access to sourcing data, shipping, and all of that. So for us, what we do in effect is tailor data to the profile that we have in an organization. Data that a CEO accesses is different than the data that a store manager has. And my job is in effect to give them the data that they need to make that decision in a real-time manner, or as speedy as possible. Right. So we and we mix all of this data, we organize it. First of all, we extract it from various kind of systems. Then we.
Can I ask how though? Like, what's your source of getting all of this data?
So we'll start from the first point of contact with the customer.
Yeah.
Our tills, our EPOS solutions. And so when a customer comes into the store, they pay, and in there we have two choices: are you a customer that we know, or are you a customer that we don't know?
Sure.
If you are a customer that we know, like in Shukran, I know exactly kind of what you've bought in the past. I can then give you a specific service. And if you have any issue, I have the history. And you say, I bought this particular product, but I don't remember. I can go back and instantly give you this. I can offer you specific promotions because of your history, because of your level. Yeah. So that's the first part of information that we have. Online, of course, we have entire wealth of data about our customers and their shopping experiences, what they bought, what they don't like, their feedback. And then, of course, we have selling data. So how much inventory we've sold. Yeah. We have a phenomenal logistics operations in Denmark. You may or may not know, but we've opened one of the largest fully automated distribution centers in the Middle East, but it's a marvel of technology. And you will see it's in Jebel Ali, and that service is now entire UAE and beyond. So it'll start to service Oman pretty soon. Okay. And that flow of data, that inventory data, is then fed. What sells? What doesn't? What's the customer feedback? Who gets 1 star? Who gets 2 stars? We understand the feedback from our customers when they shop for us in the store, because we have ways to ask them. Surveys, for example. So all of this data, and we understand some other elements as well. Is even when our customers comes in, we know how many customers came into our stores, how many customers walked by and never walked in. Right. So all of that information then we present either to the marketing team, to the buyer, and then we ask them then, tell us.
Right, so we've had this conversation about data for a bit though. One question I've always had is, we all know that data can't really predict the future. It's not really a crystal ball. What it really does is it gives you data from, what's happened in the past. It gives you information from what's happened in the past and then predicts what could happen in the future, right? I mean, the way AI works, for example. So the problem with this is we, for a long time, haven't had access to absolutely clean data. There's not been access to transparent data. And then we are also in this crossroads at this time where consumer behavior, expectations are changing so rapidly, especially from what we saw last year. So in this context, would you be more data-driven or more intuition-driven when it comes to making these decisions?
I think this is a great question. It's quite a big debate, Is AI going to replace human nature? Sure. And I'm one of those believe, I think, no, but it will enhance it, in effect. So I think you cannot do without intuition, because a buyer's gut feel, understanding where the market is moving, trends, there are some really specific skills, and you can see that. I mean, creativity is going to be in the realm of humans for some time. But I think data cannot predict the future, but it can give you a pretty good idea of where things land. Okay. And the idea here for us, when you do things of scale, because we have an organization of 45,000 people, we don't have 45,000 people that are extraordinary at everything all the time. Yeah. And what data and technology does, it levels the playing field. So it gives enough information to say, just look at these 3-4 things, because that's what the past says. So it might not tell me what the new shirt is going to be, but it'll tell you a shirt of similar color, similar construct has sold X amount in the last. This is the feedback of your customers about that product.
Right.
And this is what the competition is doing. And then, but ultimately the decision is to be that of a buyer, that of a planner, that of the retailer.
Yeah.
Because they know and they feel. And what we do here is try to get that feedback and make it a little more scientific. So the ultimate thing is not about replacing humans, because I think it's a futile exercise.
Yeah.
But actually to use the technology, to use AI, to use machine learning, to use data from across. Because if you do it and you curate it and you present it in a way, humans are phenomenal at making the right decisions.
Yeah.
And they look like it's intuition, but it's intuition powered with data. And that's kind of what we try to do, with some success in key areas, but we are continuously learning as a group.
Sure, but again, speaking about the physical and digital aspects of things, even with the stores, right? There's the e-commerce element and the physical element of the stores. So what I would like to know from you is, how do you use the information and the data you get from physical stores in your e-commerce operations, if at all you use it? And B, we were just talking about it a little bit earlier about how there is no parity in a lot of the retailers we see today, where it's a different language, it's a different essence, it's a different feel online with the legacy, or offline with the legacy stores, and online, which is fairly new. So how do you address these challenges?
First of all, there is no quick answer to kind of a lot of this challenge, how can companies become digital? But what we have to start with is some really basic stuff. It's all about our customers. And the idea is, how do you understand the journey of our customers that interacts with you?
Yeah.
Whether online, through a mobile, through a desktop, TV advert, or in our stores. So the idea is you need to understand the customer. Customers don't care our internal complexity. They don't care we have functions, we have departments, we have this. They want an experience with us. And they come to us to spend their hard-earned cash.
Yeah.
And we have to be worthy of this exercise. So digital for me is about making sure that you bring everything that you have, all the resources, all the activities, all the people, all in service of that journey.
Okay.
And what most organizations do, and I think where they fail, is they say, well, let me think of digital as this web experience that I'll do online, independent of. I don't think it's the right strategy, because the customer knew us through the brick and mortar, knew us through the touch and feel. They saw the thing, and with the experience, with the services. They knew us because our store staff have given them a phenomenal experience. And they want that experience to be online and offline. We cannot confuse that journey. So what we have done in the last 3 years, we have actively, internally, just to look in the mirror and say, why are we here? I'm not here to develop the most advanced technology. That's not my job.
Yeah.
The web team, headed by James, he doesn't think about, I'm only focusing on the web. Or the supply chain doesn't think, I'll do this for the e-commerce, I'll do this. No. Ultimately, every one of us and every concept, in the morning it's about customer, in lunch it's about the customer.
Yeah.
And when you start to think about this, then you say, I'm going to take complexity out of the customer journeys, make their journey convenient. It doesn't stop from the intuition of a great product, a great service, and all of that. All of that has to work like a Swiss clock. Because the attention of a customer will not forgive you if you give them a bad experience.
Yeah.
And not only that, they'll impact 10 other friends. Guess what? Because social media is a very powerful tool now to promote us. So every customer experience counts.
Yeah.
And our job is ultimately at the back is to make that journey coherent. And one of the great success stories and the leadership of our chairwoman and CEO, Rinuka, is make sure that we focus on the customer. And then do whatever you think is correct in the back to support that journey. And that has allowed us, at least in the last year, to really stay above the rest, still service our customers, look after our people. You have to imagine, overnight, 45,000 people started to work from home.
Yeah.
We didn't feel it as an organization because our interest was for them to be safe. But that digitization journey that started some few years ago has allowed us to transition with a lot. And
so you're saying you were already ready for this sort of situation?
Absolutely. I think at least a lot readier than most, because you can start and do massive change. I think COVID has been an opportunity more outside of course, the tremendous damage it has done, but from organization, it forced you to really focus on your priorities.
Yeah.
But luckily for us, we knew that the priority was 3 years ago the customer, and it's still a priority now. COVID only just focused our energy and allowed almost like to everybody to see, clearly if we didn't do this, and you see now a different energy within the group. Because now we still focus on this, whether you work from the office, whether you work from a DC, or in a coffee shop, or in a small town in the middle of India, the focus for all of us is how do you deliver that experience to the customer.
Sure, and this is exactly why we wanted you to be here on our first episode, because retail has gone through a little bit of a hit. Again, it's an understatement, but with everything that's happened during COVID, but Landmark has thrived, and your digital transformation has been brilliant. We see an online presence literally everywhere, and even in store with some of your brands like Splash introducing the endless aisle concept. It's all innovative, but it's happened in such a short space of time, which is why we'd love to learn from, what you've done, how you've achieved, where you've come to in this space of time.
That the board has created for all of this to work.
Yeah.
It's kind of that spirit of collaboration. I mean, Landmarkers are kind of awesome. I mean, we in front of adversity. When things tough, we just double up.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed personally is kind of the level of collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally opened up new countries for e-commerce in 3 weeks. Because we didn't have presence. Pre-COVID, we said 6 months, a year down the line, because we had some other priorities.
Yeah.
But because our stores were shut. So we had plus 2,000 stores that were not there. People were really concerned. But the leadership of our concepts, and you talked about Splash, and Raza Beg, the director and CEO, is a phenomenal individual, and he can kind of combine the creativity of designs, and this is why you see some phenomenal offers in his concept, with the necessity to utilize kind of our power as a group to service our customers. And what we have done in effect is focus on priorities, first of all, make sure the customer journey is not impacted. And we started, for example, redefine the role of the store. From traditional, you come in, you just go buy and shop. The store now in Landmark has a new identity, a newfound energy, I think, a newfound life, where now we can pick, pack and ship from a store.
Okay.
But in the past, we used to kind of spend 24 hours, 3 days. Our objective is how can I deliver to you within 1 hour? Because we have this chain, this network of stores that can catch areas of population within half an hour.
Yeah.
I can give you an experience and that convenience that very few, even online companies, struggle to do, because the big online companies only have big DCs or distribution centers. I have those, but I have 2,000 mini DCs.
Right.
To utilize these assets, this is where kind of this vertical alignment that we have between the buying function, the planning function, the supply chain, and the e-commerce. This is where the value is, and this is where leaders have come across to say, forget about everything, forget about the noise, focus on the customer. And as long as we are that, then I think we have kind of started on a phenomenal journey. The work that we've done has given us a short kind of competitive advantage, maybe 6 months ahead of the competition. But I can assure you that internally, the board is absolutely aligned to how do you maintain that competitive advantage.
Right.
And this is what kind of our programs and our development, at least in technology, is for the purpose of kind of maintaining that competitive advantage.
Sure. I mean, you've said this at least 10 times in the last 15-minute conversation we've had, that it's always about the customer. You've always put customer first. But from a customer point of view, with, all of the documentaries we've been watching, such as Social Dilemma, or with the Cambridge Analytica news that came about, one question that we've always had, and one thing that we're always concerned of, is this entire debate between data and privacy.
Yeah.
What is happening to the data that we aren't, in a lot of cases, voluntarily giving, but, all of these bigger companies, they have access to it. What are they doing it? How are they doing it? Is it intrusion, etc.? So in this debate between data and privacy, and we've spoken about data so much, how exactly are you trying to maintain that customer confidence? And is there a regulatory body, authority that governs how to use the customer's data?
First of all, outside, and I think in the UAE, they are really kind of advanced in defining, so there's a government body that controls and dictates effectively how we should acquire, manage, dispose of data, with the customer being absolutely in charge of their data, because it's not ours, it's actually your data.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, it's almost like it is a responsibility. You are trusting us with information, because that information you're offering us as Landmark will allow us to service you better. And this is why we need the data. In itself, there's no value to it.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to understand you, so I can better propose services and products to you. But internally, from a technology perspective, it is absolutely, we are kind of extraordinarily focused on protecting the customer data.
Sure.
Ensuring it's sane, it's safe, it's not distributed when the customer doesn't want it. And we are absolutely working with all the bodies to enhance that experience.
Sure. So, I mean, just on the back of this conversation, we've seen three aspects of how, advertising is taking place right now, from, subtle recommendations to in-your-face advertising to spamming, right? So in the beginning, it was a thin line, it was a fine line between all of these three verticals, but then the line keeps getting finer and it's just like merging. But again, this is happening by using the customer's data. Sure. So how do you make sure that the line is there and it's thicker than ever?
So I think it's always, as you rightly say, I mean, you have mentioned some like a social aspect where you don't even know this is marketing, but it is.
Yeah.
So the objective for us is always to kind of respect this trust that the customer has given us, the data has given us, to service them better. Okay? And if they say, please don't send me 20 emails a day, we don't.
Okay.
We have tools and things to say, actually, it's futile, because you end up, if you're not very careful as an organization, alienating the customer.
Understood. Great. Thanks so much for joining us here, Mohamed. It was such an interesting conversation. I've definitely learned a lot from the 20-minute discussion we've had. And thank you for joining us here today. We will be back again next week to talk about all things data, tech, and digital transformation.